Hey everyone, LegnatheDark here, and welcome to one of my new types of videos called Debatables. This is basically just going to be a series of videos talking about random subjects and topics, whether it's about video games or politics or fucking, I don't know, but it's just going to be random topics videos. I'm usually going to do them with more people, but as of now, I'm just going to be I'm pretty much going to be ranting about this part. So, pretty much my discussion today is about the fairy types in the new Pokemon X and Y games. For those of you who don't know, the reason why they created fairy types in the first place is to add a new weakness to dragon types and just in the field in general. Because dark types dark types have a good range of weaknesses, but dragon types only have two weaknesses actually. Okay, but dragon types didn't have a lot of weaknesses, so pretty much it was just an ice type or a dragon type would be able to beat it off. And the reason why they created fairy types is so that they would have more weaknesses. Okay, I understand that the game is really okay. The whole game is supposed to be based off of animals and plants and everything that were turned into Pokemon. But when you think about it, the game's really just random monsters you have to fight. Like, even though they do have the Pokédex entries, which pretty much explains the biology of each of these Pokemon, and it kind of makes it seem like they try to go as legitly as possible to create a biologically superpowered animal or plant or whatever. And yeah, that's a cool idea. It's just that, like, I was just so used to the idea that they were supposed to be like a new type of animal, a new type of species, because there's plenty of animals that do exist that have, well, not superpowers, but I guess abilities that kind of mock that. So it's like, let's say there's this certain type of lizard that it bleeds blood out of its eyes as a kind of defense mechanism, so it like scares away, like certain animals and predators and stuff. The same thing, there's also this type of lizard that can open up like these flaps on its neck and create kind of like it can like kind of jump and scare enemies and stuff like that. So kind of like in that sense, that is a cool type of ability, which is what a lot of Pokemon are kind of based off of too. So let's say, for example, I can't think off the top of my head a certain Pokemon or something that has like a defense mechanism like that. Oh, you know what? Okay, how about this? Heliolisk has, just like one of those lizards I was talking about, Heliolisk, which is the evolved form of, oh fuck, I can't even remember its name. Okay, but you guys know the Pokemon Heliolisk. Well, Heliolisk is basically like that lizard I was talking about with the flaps on its neck that's usually used as like a defense mechanism to scare away predators and stuff like that. But in the game, they kind of changed that ability so it can absorb solar radiation or solar light and UV light to convert into energy, kind of like a plant would with chlorophylls on its on its leaves and stuff. That's how it kind of like absorbs energy. So if you think about it, Heliolisk is kind of based off the idea of a plant, like the whole idea for harvesting energy from the sun, and pretty much, a lizard, and based off that species of lizards, which I don't know the name of, but you probably seen lizards like that before that have those neck flaps. I think they can also run over water too, which is pretty fucking sweet. But I mean, that's another one of the abilities that animals. So okay, so the main reason why I was talking about all that stuff is because they try to base Pokemon a lot off of biology and off of real animals, and just a small intake of giving them superpowers, like Ice Beam and Thunder and stuff like that. I mean, eels, if you think about it, they kind of have like superpowers. Like, they can conduct electricity as a defense mechanism before, so if they're if eels are about to get eaten, they can like electrify their bodies and shock the predators, kind of like that. Or, yeah. So eels have that defense mechanism, and that's kind of a superpower. Like, eels have electricity in them. So like, I don't see how how far off it would be, you know. I mean, okay, dragons don't exist, but dinosaurs exist. So like, and back then, I'm sure there were several cases of dinosaurs that could create steam or something close to fire. These are just, I'm just guessing this. But I mean, if you think about it, there's so many animals that exist out there that have so many traits related to like a Pokemon or superpowered animals and stuff like that. So it's not that far off. But like, the reason why I was talking about all of this is because they kind of base Pokemon off of biology and off of real animals. And a lot of people's arguments would be that they created a fairy type, and like that's not based off nature and science and stuff. And if you think about it, I can see where people get off when they say that Pokemon's really based off of biology, because a lot of the animals are based off of like real life animals too. In fact, the majority of them are. But when you think about it, like Chandelure, it's a fucking chandelier shaft and that hangs on the ceiling, and that's not a Pokemon. I mean, that's not an animal. So, I mean, it can be really far off. Plus, when you think about it, I mean, first gen, I mean, Gengar, if you look at Gengar, it's just a ghost that kind of looks like Clefable, like it's Shadow or something. But yeah, and if you think about Jigglypuff, like, what? It's not based off an animal at all. Like, I mean, I suppose there's some traits, like its ears, or the little swirl on its head, kind of like a quill. Well, a quill that goes downward. Okay, but if you think about it, Jigglypuff isn't really based off anything. It's kind of their own creation, and I guess you can defy that as, let's say, an animal. In the world of Pokemon, you can defy that as, you know, like that could be based off an animal, maybe, or it can just be some guy's idea for a Pokemon, a brand new animal or something based in that world. Because I've never seen anything like Jigglypuff exist in our world, so it's not that far-fetched that they can create something like fairy types. So. I strayed off subject there for a while, but yeah. Okay, so going back to the whole thing, why they created fairy type Pokemon. We all know they created fairy type Pokemon to create more of a weakness to dragon types and dark types and whatever. But I kind of think they could have thought of something better than fairy types, because I mean, granted, there are a lot of Pokemon that aren't emasculating like intimidation or anything, but I mean, fairy type could have been something different, because all they really made fairy types for is for the whole purpose of creating a weakness. And if you're going off the lore of things like fire's weakness to water, because water can like not destroy water, but okay. Water can take out fire because it puts fire out. Grass can take out water because grass absorbs water as nutrients, so it doesn't really do anything to it. Rock and bug because a rock can crush a bug, you know, that kind of thing. So when they were going off of that kind of like physics, it kind of like, okay, but how does a fairy kill a dragon in this case? Like, it would make more sense if, let's say, they made steel type into, like, if they made steel type a weakness for dragon types. Because, you know, like, if you're, you know, back then in the medieval times, if you're a knight, you had a sword to kill a dragon, and swords are made out of steel, that kind of thing, you know? That kind of makes more sense to me. But to create a whole new type and call it fairy type just to make another weakness for dragon, it's just like, where do you get, I mean, like, not where do you get off, because like you own the company, you can do whatever you want, but like, where did you get that idea from? Like, where did you get the idea that fairy types are good against dragon types? Like, dragons, we've never seen a dragon, and I'm pretty sure dragons do not exist. I mean, maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of history and lore about it in like England, but I still haven't seen any dragons. We still don't have any evidence of dragons that exist in our world except for books and stories. If anything, dragons could have been based off dinosaurs, but still we have no idea what they are actually weakness to. All we know is that in the lore of dragons, knights kill dragons, and that knights have swords to kill dragons with, and swords are tend to be made out of steel. So I don't exactly understand where they get off saying that, we can make up fairy types can kill dragons, right? It's like, nobody actually knows that. And how do you describe a fairy type? Like, really, like, what it seems like to me in the game so far, fairy types seem like a variation of light or holy, or some kind of holy light, which would explain why it's super effective against dark type. But I don't see the connection between fairy types being stronger than dragon types, except maybe in old lore that fairy types created dragons in a way. So I guess you can take that, but it would seem more sense that you'd be able to slay a dragon with a sword, like a steel type. So like if you had a Metagross go up against a Dragonite and he did like bullet punch, boom, he's dead. Like Dragonite's dead. Because, he's made out of steel, he stabbed me in the chest, so, but I still don't see how fairy types are super effective against dragon types. Because, like, if they were going off the lore that, like, fairy types created, okay, because I remember reading back where they had a couple of fairies that created dragons, and fairies were kind of like gods in a way. So, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it still doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem properly illustrated throughout Pokemon, really, that fairy types are this type of kind of, or, whatever powers or abilities fairy has aren't really as implemented as precisely as you would expect. So it's like, fairy types are just pretty much, they seem like a light or holy type in Pokemon so far to me. I mean, but in the lore of fairies, you can really, there's variations of fairies. There's fire fairies, there's pixies, there's fucking sprites, all the kinds. You can't really go off a basic thing, and I can only guess that like the Game Freak was pretty much going off of light fairies in the world of Pokemon, because it's like they created light fairies. So they have attacks like Moonlight, Moonlight already existed before, but Moonlight is a fairy type move now. Moon Blast. Fairy Wind, so Wind Fairies now too. So they based off of Light Fairies and Wind Fairies, or maybe it's still Light Fairy and it's just like Light Wind. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling now. But as you can see, I just think that a steel type would be a better weakness towards dragons than a fairy type. You can still have fairy types. Like, I love fairy types actually right now. My Mega Gardevoir is pretty badass with its high speed and high special attack. So like, I love the inclusion of the fairy types, and it does add a lot of new movesets and everything, and that's cool and awesome. But I would think fairy types should not be a weakness towards dragon types. I believe fairy would be a good weakness towards dark types. Okay, I have no fucking idea why fairy types are super effective to fighting types. That makes no sense. I mean, I can only get that fighting types are an ability that humans can have, and that fairies are higher up compared to humans. So it's like, you're just a human, I'll just toss you around with my fairy magic and shit. And it's like, oh no, I'm just human, you toss me around with your fairy magic and shit. So like, you're being tossed against a wall by fucking fairy magic. So I guess that, but like fighting types, I mean, you know what? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Just because fairies are like magic and you can't touch magic because you're just a human and all you can do is fight with your fist. So I guess that makes sense. Because that's like the same reason why psychic types can beat fighting types. Because it's like, I'm going to try to punch you with my fist, you psychic type. And the psychic types are like, no you're not, because I'm just going to freeze you midair and throw you in the air. So I guess that makes sense. But I mean, I don't know, I just find that weird. But still, I don't think fairy types should be super effective against dragons still. Because I mean, like, dragons aren't really super effective to psychic, and fairy types are basically the same thing, except it's like psychic is more like, you know what? So, okay, psychic and fairy types can be compared to magic, I guess, or powers or something like that. But if you think about it in the sense of it, like, shouldn't every type be able to defeat fighting types then? Because it's just like, if you're trying to fight a dragon, oh, it's a fucking dragon, you can't fight it with your fist, you need a sword or something. But guess what, you're just a fighting type, so you're gonna get beaten by the dragon type. I guess flying types are super effective against fighting types because, oh, we're in the air and you're on the ground and you can't fly because you're a fighting type. So you can't use fighting type move. Well, you can use fighting type moves against them, but you can't, you can't reach us. So that makes us super effective to you, I guess. I don't get it. I don't know. Plus, I still don't get why flying types is super. You know what? That's more of a better. That's a different argument. But okay, I'm straying off here. But as you can see, I don't get a lot of the weaknesses in game, but I do get the basic ones. Basically, like fire is weak against water, water is weak against grass, fire is good against grass because, fucking forest fires, and I guess the rest of them, like ice, super effective against rock because it can slowly break it down a rock over time. So it's basically like if you froze a rock in water, it would crack. So that's the whole reason behind that. And basic things like I'm flying and you're on the ground, you're a ground type, I'm in the air. And then when it comes to like mystical and magical and made up elements like psychic and ghost and fairies and dragons, I guess you can do whatever you want with them. But I just believe that fairy types should just not be a weakness to dragon types. Like in the game, it's kind of illustrated as like a light move, like a holy magic light kind of thing. So it's like, I believe fairy types should be only good against ghost types, dark types, fighting types. What else? That's pretty much it, and that seems like a good balance of weaknesses. And I think Game Freak just should have made a steel type super effective against dragon types because it's a sword. Like you can use your sword, you can use a steel Pokemon to stab a dragon. In that kind of sense. I don't know. I just think that fairy types shouldn't be called fairy types. I think it should have been called holy type or light type. But then again, that still goes into the sense of magic and stuff. But I don't know. If you think about it, the game's already a big mix between magic and science in a way. Because, throughout the games, they're treated like animals. They're studied like animals. They can be explained just like animals. But when it comes to legendary Pokemon, it's like, fuck, we can't explain that. All we know is the legends behind these legendary Pokemon and shit like that. So I guess, like, the world of Pokemon can basically be explained as a world crossed between human science and Pokemon magic. Because the same thing in that world can be, it's kind of like our world. See, in the sense I'm speaking of, not to confuse a lot of people, is that it's pretty vague too, so my bad, but it still connects in a way. So you see, in our world, we can study animals and we can explain animals and everything like that too. But when it comes to the origin of us, we can't really explain it. We can only go off the history of things, and the history of things is mostly based off of people's stories about their gods, really. So that does explain the whole Arceus thing, that I guess we know Arceus exists in the Pokemon world. So in that sense, they basically know that God exists in that world. But the same way that a bunch of other gods also exist. So it's just kind of like, okay, so magic exists in the Pokemon world. Crazy shit in the Pokemon world exists. So that means there's a potential for a lot more things to exist. But in our world, we do not physically know that, let's say all those gods exist yet. All we can go by is the history of things. But the same way as in the Pokemon world, that you can't describe the gods in the Pokemon world. All because in every Pokedex entry, they basically talk about the legends of these legendaries. They don't explain them. Because, okay, I guess they can't even capture them either, because everyone knows that legendary Pokemon, there's only one type of legendary Pokemon. And usually, common trainers cannot catch them, because you need a strong trainer of, you know, a trainer of heart, and a trainer of skill, and all that stuff to capture a legendary Pokemon. So, you can't really capture legendary Pokemon and study them like you could a Pikachu or a Charmander or anything. So in that sense, it's just like these two worlds are or pretty much we can say that our world, no, not our world, is based off the Pokemon. Okay, the Pokemon world is based off our world, really. So, and Game Freak can do whatever the fuck they want, I guess. So they could make a fairy type and a ghost type and dark and light, dragon and all that shit. But I'm just saying, what they were going for is in the sense, okay, because you can tell just by their elemental types and stuff that they were trying to go off our basic physics in our real world for weaknesses. But then when they ran out of like shit to like make, you know, like, oh shit, like we made a psychic type, but we don't know what psychic type's weakness of. And they're all like, oh wait, well, because psychic types use their mind to do psychic shit. So if they were distracted by, let's say, a scary, spooky ghost or bugs are scary, I guess. Or I guess in bug types, it's more the sense that you're being, okay, if you were being attacked by a shitload of spiders, you could not focus on the spiders. You'd be too afraid because they're kind of swarming towards you, about to eat your flesh, and it's like, you know, so as a psychic type, you can't focus because you're too fucking scared of all these spiders. So I guess a fear of spiders or bugs would help. Well, okay, that's what I don't get. Okay, so if you're afraid of a bug type and it's like, you know, scary bugs and shit, I can't focus and use my psychic powers, then it's like, how do I, you know, like the same thing for like, I guess you can be, if you're afraid of snakes too and you're being attacked by a snake, it's like, I can't focus because I'm scared. So psychic types could be afraid of anything, or pretty much psychic types as weakness are fears because they can't focus when they're afraid. So, it's okay. So, okay, Game Freak didn't really explain why they made bug types, dark types, ghost types, the weakness of psychic types, really. So this stuff is too hard to explain. See, like, in my sense of having a rant about Pokemon and its fairy types is basically because I want to try to explain it. I want to try to explain it in the most sense that I could. But if you think about it, you can't really fucking explain why Game Freak does anything anymore. Okay, because what I'm still upset about in Pokemon X and Y is why they did not include the move tutor from Black and White 2, which is near the Pokemon World Tournament Center. And it's just like, where the fuck is that move tutor? Why did you take him out? Where is he? You know? I don't know. But basically, you can't really explain why Game Freak does what it fucking does. So, I guess my rant is starting to curve more towards the fact, why does Game Freak do the things they do? What's their logic behind it? That really, it doesn't get me upset, but it makes me question to the point where it's giving me a headache. Like, because as you can see, this rant has gone towards from trying to explain why they created fairy types to be the weakness, to why do they do whatever the fuck they do in the first place. Like, why are they doing these things? Like, why did they try to make it like real human physics to like made up superpowers and magic and shit? I mean, I guess if you compare this to something of fiction, then maybe the Pokemon world evolved from our world in a theory kind of sense. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe the whole point of Pokemon is to not trying to explain it too, but as a realist, I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to make sense of it so that like it'll be It would be okay if you can explain a series. It would be so much more cooler. Like, for example, you see, for those of you who watch Adventure Time, and I'm sorry, but these are going to be spoilers, so I would, if you don't like spoilers, you would just fucking get out of this video right now, because I'm going to spoil Adventure Time for all of you. So you see, as you guys all know, Finn the human was taken in by Jake the dog. Jake the dog's family, I mean. So that he grew up with them. We have no idea where Finn came from because he is the only human in all of Ooo. See, in the land of Ooo, it's a bunch of made up and random shit. But the reason why it's fucked up like that there's a candy kingdom and a fire kingdom and an ice kingdom and there's vampires and werewolves and all kinds of fictional things, they try to explain it by saying that the world... Okay, they also do explain that this world has a heaven and hell, or an equivalent of hell, which is the Nightosphere, which is where Marceline comes from, and she's a vampire, and her father's like basically Satan, or some type of Dracula kind of Satan vampire thing. So anyways, so they kind of based this world off of our legends and lore and all that stuff. So, and they even go to the point of saying that this world used to be Earth. The land of Ooo used to be Earth. By a couple episodes came out called Mortal Folly and Mortal Downfall, I believe. Those 2 episodes, and they also came out with 2 more episodes called Finn the Human, and Jake the Dog. Those 2, okay, so the 2 episodes, Mortal Folly and Mortal Rebound, I forget what I said earlier. Anyways, those 2 stories basically talk about the Lich. The Lich was a supernatural creature that existed in the land of Ooo that was locked in a gem of amber so that it wouldn't be able to attack the people of Ooo again. Now, the existence of the Lich is basically due to a nuclear bomb that hit Earth and created it. So, I guess a long ass time ago there was a war happening and they dropped a huge nuke onto this city. This nuke was supposed to, I guess, destroy humanity or something. So in that sense, it did destroy humanity by creating the Lich and creating a bunch of these zombie things that, if you've seen that episode of Simon and Marcy, or Simon and Marceline, Marceline was still a child at that time, and Simon was just a archaeologist, I believe, that found this magical crown. So as you know, the same reasoning for behind what I was saying, that the Pokemon world was based off of our world, the land of Ooo was based off of our world as well. So, going back to the whole idea that Game Freak could just make up wherever the fuck they want, and same thing with the creators of Adventure Time. I think it's Federator, I'm not sure. They created, they all try to come off of the concept of Earth itself. So it's not that I'm saying that it's lazy writing or anything. The writing is amazing in both the Pokemon world and the Adventure Time world, but I gotta say that a lot of writers nowadays are kind of going off that concept of that they're coming off that concept that, oh, we'll just base partially our world off of Earth and put some other made up random shit later. And I mean, if you think of it like the Half Glass Full, it kind of looks like somewhat lazy. I mean, not lazy, or just not well thought out. Because, like, okay, so another example I'm going to go off of is, hold on, I'm going to get some water quick. Okay, I'm back. So, as I was saying before, so if you think about the world of Superman, it's also kind of based off Earth, but they go to the point where they create other planets as well, and other civilizations and other settings and environments. But in the world of Pokemon, all you know outside of the concept of Earth that they have created is that all you know is that there's some type of Pokemon that come from space. That's all you really know. So you do know that in that world a space does exist, like that space does exist, but what you don't know is what exists out there beyond Earth. And that's what keeps the whole story really closed-minded, because it's just all they get based off of is just to talk about Earth itself, and that's all they can really do. Hold on, I'm gonna serve some more soda quick. So yeah, like when you get to that, it's really short-minded. It's closed-minded writing in the sense, because they don't expand any more than they already did, and it's been 6 games already. You would think that they'd find more worlds out there or something like that. Expand the universe a little bit, like Superman does, like DC Comics does, like Marvel Comics does. They expand the universe so much and create so much more things. So, sorry I strayed off there for a little bit about the closed-mindedness of the writing of everything, but I believe that the reason why that Pokemon created the fairy type in the first place is because they didn't stray off into new planets and create their own lore. They did not create their own environments, new planets, new places, new worlds. That is why they created fairy types in the first place. It's because they did not want to expand off of their own imagination and create something like that. You know, like create something like Krypton or something like anything outside of their own world. That is why they created fairy types, because instead of creating their own worlds, they decided to just go to base off more things off of earthly lore itself. That's why fairy types came entwined, dragon types came entwined, ghost and psychic types, and those things don't exist. And they're only going off the imagination based off of someone else. They're not creating their own things. If you think of, okay, for those of you who watched Ben 10, you know how they created different types of aliens. Alright, so not just the basic looking alien of just a big head, gray skin, big eyes, small petite body with a big, big intellect. They created more to the point where it's not just aliens anymore, but they're alien planets with alien environments and alien cattle and all that type of thing. The equivalents with also creating an extensive on their biology as well. So I just don't like that Pokemon is just staying to the concept of Earth. Like, they are not expanding outside of Earth. Adventure Time, I kind of feel like that about it too, but they do create a lot of new and colorful creatures on the planet that are not really based off of anything we have ever seen before. I mean, I guess the candy people are based off of candy and they look humanoid as well, but things like the Nidosphere, I know it's based off of hell, but the idea of a prison for demons, not like a prison for humans who have done bad, but this is a prison for demons that have wronged what's his name? Marceline's dad. I know his name. I have an encyclopedia somewhere, but okay, so Marceline's dad is basically based off of Satan, but he's also a father, and he's so much more than just the concept of the devil. In Pokemon, they just do a straight up copy of a dragon, and yeah, they do have an extensive category of species of dragons, but they're all based off the same concept of dragons. Like, the reptilian, long-tailed claws and talons and stuff like that, and some of them can fly and some of them look like raptors. They're just all the basic type of dragon. It's cool that they made Alteriar into a dragon type, because that shows dragon types as more of an element than it is a species itself. But when you look at fairy types, they're just all based off your basic idea of fairy types. Petite, pink, feminine looking Pokemon. Okay, granted, Azumarill kind of just looks like a water mouse. I don't know why they gave him a fairy type, but I suppose it's the same reason, to add more of a weakness and to add more of a move pool to Azumarill itself. But yeah, just getting back on that, it's so constrained, the writing that Game Freak creates for their own games and stuff. It's so enclosed in just the concept of Earth. They can go far beyond that, create new worlds, but stop basing things off Earth. You can do so much more by straying off into unseen territory. It would help out so much. You kind of go off by creating Deoxys and Lunatone and Solrock, but that's it. Those are the only 3 Pokemons, and they only give evidence that there's life out there in space. But they don't implement that new idea now into the game. They can go off into so much more. Adventure Time, okay, granted, most of it is based off of Earth, but the lumpy space, they created a whole new world outside of the land of Ooh. So if you think about it, the lumpy space princess isn't from Earth. She's from lumpy space. And that already says right there that before Earth became the land of Ooh in Adventure Time, it was Earth and lumpy space and I forget that place where okay, oh, they also have Mars too in Adventure Time, so that's even more of an extension on the whole idea of creating new worlds. You know what? No. Adventure Time is the better example of creating more worlds inside a closed environment that is also based off Earth. So you have something you have something familiar within yourself that shows, oh, this is just like Earth, because it used to be Earth. But also it gets to the point where it's like, what used to be Earth also had more worlds around it, because as our Earth as of now is just, it's just Earth. It's just, it's just Earth as of now, and they extended in that in Adventure Time, yes, but they even go off to create more worlds that aren't just like Earth, but are totally different. Like, I mean, I suppose lumpy space is kind of based off the clouds, but it's a whole new creature, it's a whole new world, and Adventure Time did really good by creating new worlds and created more ideas. More imagination is in Adventure Time than anything I've ever seen before. When you look at Pokemon, there is a great idea of imagination, but for most people, the only really reason why we invest so much in Pokemon is because we want to see their new ideas of Pokemon and their new animals and new creatures to fight with. But they only have so much to be based off of. Like, they only base so much of their animals and creatures and Pokemon off of Earth itself, when they can create so much more. Deoxys was obviously based off an alien. The same thing, and Lunatone and Solrock are obviously based off a meteorite. Same thing with Metagross. Metagross is also based off a meteorite, that fell into Earth, like a big, heavy steel meteorite, I suppose. So yeah, they only go so far out into our concept of space, though. Earth's concept of space. That has meteors and aliens and stuff like that. We don't know if aliens exist yet, but someone else, okay, there's so much evidence that points to aliens, but I don't believe it yet. I need proof. I need to see these creatures for myself in order to say, yup, aliens exist, But me, I need to see to believe, alright? I need to see the Transformer. I need to see the Transformer to see it exist. Alright? You can't just point to a car and say, that's a Transformer, but it's not a Transformer yet. It's just transformed into a car. No, I gotta see the Transformer, dude. You can't just tell me that. I need to see to believe. So, anyways, so this whole rant is just basically why they created fairy types. They created fairy types because they could not think. They can't think of any more concepts outside of Earth. They can't create anything else. Their imagination is only ranged to what they come from Earth, because they're going off the concept of trying to make it like Earth. But really, all they're theorizing is that this used to be Earth, because it's just based off the animals we had on Earth. So really, in a sense, it's just, you're just recycling Earth's, like, you're basically getting the blank sheet of paper that was Earth and just drawing more things that other people have already created. It's unimaginative, actually, when you think about it. Pokemon's just, all they do is get a dog and give it superpowers. That's all they do. They get a lizard and give it superpowers, or it's really, Pokemon's really unimaginative now that I think about it. Just by having this discussion about it on YouTube, it's just, Pokemon's really unimaginative. I mean, I'm being a little harsh too, but if you think about it, all their animals, the Earth itself, it's all based, like, it's, I mean, if you think about it, the world that was created, or the new land that was created in Pokemon X and Y, which is supposed to be based off of France, you know, the country France. And, you know, same thing, it's cool that it was based off of France, and it points it more towards the idea that, hey, you know, wouldn't that be cool if it was like Pokemon was like in our world and we had animals and gym leaders and stuff? And it's like, yeah, that's an awesome idea. That's so cool. But it's gonna get stale fast. The whole idea, because you can only go so far. You can only go so far off, because like you only base it off the world of Earth. You know, like, I'm not saying, like, I love the Pokemon games. I love training Pokemon. I love playing the story. The story is awesome in Pokemon. Ever since the first game, even though it was on a Game Boy, like a Game Boy game, a Game Boy Color game, it was still a good story. You had a good story out of it too. Granted, it was kind of cryptic to find out the story about Mewtwo, really, because you really have to look around. It wasn't like given to you directly. Hold on. The world of Pokemon, the story of Mewtwo was not given to you directly. You pretty much have to watch the movie, which is not that bad, you know. I mean, movies happen all the time. Movies tell the best stories compared to games. Games can do just as good, though. I mean, if you look at games like Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, those stories were told pretty good. It's an interactive storytelling game, and it was so good. And especially the drama that was based in, hold on. The story that was told in Heavy Rain is so good. It kept me on edge. It made me invested in the story itself, and it made me want to play the whole game all the way through. If I didn't have stuff like work or a job, you know, a job or school or taking out the garbage, I would sit there all day and play. If I didn't have to eat, if I didn't have to breathe, I would sit there and play Heavy Rain all the way through. I can guarantee you that right now, because it's such an interactive gaming experience, and I love it so much. The same way that the stories in Pokemon are just so enticing and makes me want to play the whole game to hear the whole story through. When I first got Pokemon X and Y, I played it the first day. I never stopped. My friends were sitting here watching a movie. Our plans were to watch a movie and just hang out and stuff, and I was too busy playing Pokemon because I just love the stories they already have, and the stories are so enchanting, and it just like makes me want to say, wow, I wish we had this in our world so I can experience this every day. But okay, in this discussion, I'm looking at it as if why they only went as far as to create the concept of Earth for Pokemon. Like they only created a concept of Earth and extended not their imagination, but the imagination that already exists on Earth. Everything off of Pokemon, I can guarantee you, is coming off of Earth. There is nothing they legitly created with their own imagination. But Pokemon is just as enchanting in that sense because, well, it's pretty much saying that Pokemon can almost be like human life. And that's great and everything, but I would rather, this is my opinion, I would rather have Pokemon be like, not Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is also just based off of Disney movies and... Actually, no. Okay, in Kingdom Hearts, the only legitly made story in it... Alright, the only legit lore from in it... Okay, if you took out all the Disney characters, it'd be its own story in itself. Destiny Islands was created by them. You won't know. Well, okay, I guess islands came from Earth and stuff. But they created a whole concept of there are other worlds out there that exist that don't follow the normal physics of Earth itself, which is exactly why that I think that's such an awesome idea and that other worlds should be created. I mean, even in our world itself, I don't know who created Earth. I don't know who did that, but they obviously did a really good job in order to create not just Earth, but the moon and everything. I mean, I'm not saying that I believe that God did this, but I really do believe that however the Earth was created, it's done a great job. Like, they created the moon. So, like, when you're so used to Earth physics and you go to the moon and you realize, wow, I am floating. Like, there is no gravity on the moon. There's barely any gravity on the moon. You know? If there's barely any gravity on the moon, that means the moon does not follow the laws of our Earth. And that creates so much more of a spectrum of imagination to go on. Because now, you're in the unknown again. When you were born as a child, you were born into a world that was unknown to you. So the people of that world had to teach you themselves the laws and physics of this world. And that whole process is why it feels like, as a child, like just going through all these experiences, this is why you'll wake up one day and say, wow, I'm 25 years old and my life has gone by so fast, but it has not been wasted. You have so much more experiences coming out. Like, you have so much more experiences that you've experienced, and you have so much more experiences to experience. God, I'm saying that word a lot. Anyways, but yeah, there's so much more out there to explore, and there's so much more to do in this world. I mean, I'm only like 19 right now, and there's so much more I need to explore, and so much more I need to do. But in the world of Pokemon, you've pretty much experienced all you can that can physically be experienced. And all they could do at Game Freak is try to create more experiences for you to experience. So, Game Freak should extend outside the spectrum of the concept of Earth and go outwards into more worlds so we stop getting stupid shit like fairy types being created. Because, okay, like, I mean, I guess it's because I'm a guy, and when you see fairy types in pink, it's just kind of like, it's a little girly and feminine. But then again, they're still badass, and they still have cool movesets, and they still add a weakness to the game, and it's so much more awesome, and it adds so much more variety. But you got it, but Game Freak only made it because it was already created. Like, fairies have been around for a while now, outside of the world of Pokemon. Like, fairies have been in, like, Harry Potter, and... Well, actually, no, I don't recall hearing about fairies. I'm sure I've heard of pixies or sprites or imps, but I have not seen any fairies in Harry Potter. But anyways, fairies did exist outside of the world of Pokemon, and you only came to that concept because it already existed in Earth itself. And that's closed-minded in the sense compared to Earth and the Sun, because there's so much more out there. I mean, yes, like the world of Pokemon is a huge thing already, but when you compare it to other Earths of other genres and stories, there's so much more bigger than the world of Pokemon. Excuse me. But anyways, I'm just saying that the reason why they created fairy types is because the world of Pokemon is based off of our world completely. They based it off of our world completely. There's no Pokemon that I can think of that was not based off of something off of our Earth, off of our lore, off of our imagination. And they need to stray outside that circle of our imagination and create something completely unique. And I'm sure they can do that as well, because whoever created aliens made such an awesome idea. Whoever created dragons, I guess whoever created the idea of dragons obviously created off of maybe dinosaurs. And we know dinosaurs used to exist, but fire-breathing dragons and intelligence and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at your common anime, they create their own universe. Cowboy Bebop, for example. Well, I guess you can base Cowboy Bebop off of like that future Neo Tokyo kind of New York City cop movie, bounty hunter movie, but they go outside of space itself and create so much more out there. There's so much more to Cowboy Bebop than just the Earth itself or the place they live in. Same thing in Star Wars. Star Wars creates so many more planets just besides, Tatooine or Cloud City, Star Cities. I forget, but there's a city on the moon. Or there's a city that kind of looks like the moon on the outside, and they created all that from imagination. They created all that things. I mean, they didn't. Okay, Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, Jabba the Hutt looks nothing like you've ever seen on Earth. I guess besides a fat slug, but just his species and his morals. His species and his biology and everything is nothing you've ever seen. The same thing for the shopkeeper or the merchant on Tatooine that sells the space racer parts. I mean, what is he, an elephant mixed with a pixie and an imp? That's so outside of what already exists on Earth. They did it. They created a whole new species. They didn't go off of a dinosaur and just give it wings. No, they created a humanoid elf, A-L-F, elf, not an elf, but you know what I mean. But they created their own species, and that's so much more better than just adding wings to a dinosaur, or just taking stuff that already exists from our world into Tatooine. They did so much more. Oh damn, it's almost been an hour since I've been ranting, so I am so sorry if I'm keeping your time, but it's just, I just really feel a lot for the whole fairy type thing on Pokemon. I don't like it. I think I don't like fairy types just because I think they could have done better. I think they could have gone out the spectrum of elements and the lore that already existed on Earth to create a whole new element. Like, see, they haven't made up any elements. I mean, there's a lot of things that were created. Okay, dark types are just kind of like the existence of darkness itself, and darkness creates the unknown, which is why it's super effective against psychic type. Ghost type already, like, that concept is just straight from Earth. Like, people say they see ghost all the time. I don't know how they created the word ghost for these things, but they created it. They created that word ghost, and it seems it would be better if you made up your own type. Something that exists off the elements. And you can do it too. Like, if you think about plasma, Oh no, actually, I think plasma exists on Earth too. Alright. Light? No, light's from the sun. Well, I'm sure they can think of something. They could have thought of a whole new species too. They could. Game Freak is just it can do so much more better. It can create whole new worlds. And okay, now to finally end off this discussion. Finally, I'm going to say that fairy types don't need to be the weakness to dragon types. Fairy types don't, fairy types doesn't need to exist. The same thing for dragon types too. I mean, dragon types is a cool concept. That's why they put it in the game. Same thing, but they could have created their whole element. They could have had more creativity. The fairy type could have been a more creative type. And they only put it in because they needed a weakness to dragon types. That's all they put it in for. So, this is LegnatheDark here. Thank you for watching my first video of Debatables. It's really long. A lot of people probably zoned out of the video and probably left already. But for those who stayed and watched, thank you for watching. I really love the discussions. I'll have more of these. If you want to post some discussional topics on the bottom, go ahead and do so. Comment, like if you liked it. And yeah, thanks for watching my video. And I just hope Game Freak in the future will create more creative things that are outside of Earth. And I think fairy type could be something else. Thank you for watching.